Hi, I think I need to talk with you about the evil, the creeping, perpetual evil of the so-called Christian right. It's not just Christian right, it's evangelicals in general, no matter what denomination or religion they supposedly belong to. What they want to do is control our thinking and have us think the way they want us to think. They tell others that they should hate those who don't think the way they do. Right now, Mike Pence is working with the evangelical Christian right to have evolution prohibited from being taught. The idea of evolution being, he says, just a theory. You know what a theory is in scientific parlance? A theory is something that has been investigated time and time and time again, and results have come back which prove it, which support it. I guess you can't say exactly prove it, because if things have really been proven, they're at the point where they're called a law, not just a theory. But what Mike Pence and the evangelical right refer to as a theory, they're saying as though it were a hypothesis. It's not a hypothesis. Evolution, descent with modification is not a hypothesis. The Big Bang is not a hypothesis. We have seen evidence scientifically gathered over and over again which support the whole notion. We're just learning more and more about it all the time. Now, to say that evolution should not be taught and that the Bible should be taught is not an idea which they want to use to save humanity. It is an idea which they want to use to control our thought processes and make us ignorant so that we can more easily be manipulated by whatever they do want with whatever agendas they have. The evangelical right, people like Franklin Graham and Pat Robertson and Oral Roberts and people of that nature seek one thing, and that is power over the rest of us. And the imams and other people in Islamist societies are seeking the same thing. They want control over every action that we take, from birth to death, from the first breath we take in the morning to the last one we take when we die. All of those sorts of things like that they want to control because it makes them feel powerful. And when they feel powerful, they are less afraid, because really that's all it comes down to, is they are ruled by fear. We need to stop the madness of Mike Pence, especially, of Donald Trump too, but of Mike Pence and the evangelical right. I can point them out here in the United States because they're the ones who are really causing the damage to our thought processes and our public education. Betsy DeVos is the worst thing that has ever happened to public education. And of course, Donald Trump appointed her because he likes stupid people, because he himself is so stupid. Now, I'm going to read something here which sort of summarizes the whole process of Big Bang and descent with modification. All of this has been established as probable fact, supported by proof of observations and measurements which have been taken over many years. I call this the beginning, the middle, the present, and future. Dark matter struggled along with light matter, and energy grew until it became a quark gluon plasma. This plasma coalesced into particulate matter and produced a few Higgs bosons. And as they slowly gained mass, they became substantive and formed clouds of gas. Then the gas swirled around until it became super hot and gained mass and momentum right there on the spot. Clusters of nebulae began then to form into stars and planets in one huge cosmic storm. Galaxies formed then in size large and small and positioned themselves in the universal all. From the universe center, a galaxy pushed far away, a medium-sized one we named Milky Way. 106,000 light years across was its girth. Then a yellow-type G-star produced our planet Earth. At first, Earth was hot, then its mantle coalesced, with sheets of rock forming seabeds and the rest. Mountains and foothills and plains in a group with water condensed into what we call primordial soup. Lightning discharges were common, they say, eventually forming strands of RNA. In the primordial soup, the RNA was changed. Uracil became thymine, as some groups rearranged. DNA formed then and became double-stranded, forming the double helix, both right and left-handed. On the layers of clay, lipid micelles were formed. Into protocellular bits as the atmosphere stormed. Finally were formed pre-bacterial cells, which became photosynthetic, where no oxygen dwells. Blue-green bacteria then were seen to evolve, producing free oxygen, which soon would start to solve the anoxic challenge, where reduction was rife, as these conditions permitted multicellular life. From colonies of protozoans, the animals grew, forming worms, fish, and frog-like amphibians, too. The amphibians followed insects out onto the land, and reptiles followed, and the mammals did stand. They gained prehensile tails and thumbs that opposed, with forward-turned eyes just set over their nose. Eventually, they began to lose bodily hair, while their brains grew enough to become self-aware. That's what we are. Self-awareness then led to the making of tools and the writing of laws which established the rules. Civilization began, and we learned working together and constructed fine dwellings to resist bad weather. We gained hope for a future filled with achievement. Though wars sometimes took us and caused us bereavement, but we all worked together in strength and belief that there's something better overcoming our grief. What we learn most of all from below and above is that progress will come with a universal love. Now that's just a very, very short summary of the processes of the Big Bang and descent with modification that the Republican right-wing evangelicals and the imams and the evangelical sections of Islam would have removed, saying, oh no, we don't need to look at that stuff, it's all theory. We know our guts, just like Trump says, our guts tell us that God speaks to us all the time, and God just winked everything into existence, and we know that's ridiculous, and so do they. Now I'm going to say there's no heaven, there's no hell. Reincarnation is something which is a definitive notion, but those are things which we cannot necessarily prove scientifically. Some people say we can't scientifically prove the existence of God, yet I say look at the universe, 650 billion galaxies, and we understand that if there's intelligent design, and it seems like there probably is, the intelligent design was by a process and by a thought process and by an entity which we have absolutely no way to relate to in many ways, although we can look around us and see the wonders and see how things work and that the universe is sane. As I said in the previous video that I have submitted to you for consideration. Don't let the Mike Pences and the evangelical Christians set us back to the 1820s or the 1720s or even into the Dark Ages, which is what they'd like to do because it gives them more control. Instead, look to the galaxy and to the future and understand that science is not the enemy. Science is a tool given to us by God, wherein we can use that tool to understand the workings of things. And as soon as we do understand the working of things, we can make progress as a species and maybe be welcomed into a universal civilization. You think we're the only place that has life? That's, just totally insane to even think that. It's what they want us to think, though, because they are not involved with anything other than themselves and their own ability to control our thought processes. We must resist that by every means possible, always. Don't fall into the trap of believing the crap that they feed or they try to feed us. Instead, think humanity needs to progress. Humanity needs to become greater. The way we do that is by listening to our consciences, and as I said in the other video, following the golden rule, which just says treat one another as we would like to be treated ourselves. If you follow that rule, there's nothing else needed. Now, all of you, think about this. Think about our progress as humanity, and have a great day. Remember, love is the way to achieve forward progress and forward-looking progress. The sort of hatred and distrust and fear that the evangelical right would have you feel is merely there so that they can control your thought processes. So throw that off. Think ever forward motion for humanity and for our civilization, and maybe we'll be here. We need to preserve our planet. They are not thinking about preserving our planet. I don't know what they think. I don't know that there's another planet we can go to right now. We certainly don't have the technology, no matter whether Donald Trump thinks we have a Space Force or whatever, or not. Maybe he thinks there's a Starship Enterprise. I'm not sure that we can all go away on, or that at least they can. We need to save our planet. Our environment is terrible. There are things going on that have never happened before. We got more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than we've ever had. Global average temperature has increased, and we're having the poles on both ends of the earth melting. We're forming weather patterns that have never been seen before. We need to understand that this is all a result of short-sighted greed and the desire to control other people without thinking about the overall consequences to the human race. By the way, in 2020, vote blue. I don't care who the candidate is. We need to vote blue. We need to get rid of these Republicans completely, because things like people like Mitch Miller and his friends and Donald Trump are about as evil as anything can be for the overall progress of humanity. And not just here in the United States. Donald Trump is affecting the world. And other people in the world are seeing that. Well, at any rate, try to be positive in your actions. Work at local processes to try to get officials into office who are progressive and who care about others, not who want to just control others. Thank you. I suppose that's enough boring talk from me for the day. Bye-bye.